Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 8th week of the 2017 fall semester. We are right about at the halfway point, so, this semester is moving by pretty quickly. I can't believe it's already been 8 weeks that we've been working together, but it has been. I'm caught up pretty much on the quiz grading, except for, of course, the week 7 quizzes. Falling a little behind on the grading of the responses. Reading responses. Part of that is the fact that so many of these responses that are in my inbox are responses I should have graded 5 or 6 weeks ago. I did give you guys a little bit of an extension, so I'm going to have to get to those as soon as I can. I want to try and get those done pretty soon, so that way you have an idea of where you stand. Remember that you can always see my comments either in the grade book or you can see them directly on the postings for like weeks, I think it's 2, 3, and 4, just by clicking into the Useful D2L handouts folder and opening up the How to See My Comments on an Essay and following those directions. And that'll take you into the actual essay itself. I've stopped making the comments directly on the essay. I'll just make the comments in the gradebook at this point. But those first 3, 4 weeks, however many it was, I wanted to give you guys an idea of where some of these grammar mistakes were, or where your citation errors were, or whatever I counted out for. All right, so this week we've got 2 authors, 2 female authors, both very good authors. We got Ghosts and Goblins this week, which is about maybe 4 weeks early. But that's okay, because it is October, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's just the way that the time periods fall, and I'm doing this class by time periods, so we'll be out of Victorianism by the time we get to Halloween, so we're doing it now. The Victorian Ghost Story, which is what Elizabeth Gaskell's old nurse's story is. The Victorian Ghost Story always came out around Christmas, not around Halloween. So this was part of a Christmas number, and if you read the introduction to the story, that's what that means, is that come Christmas time, all of the Victorian authors that were popular would publish their ghost stories in the publications. So most of the times books were not published all at once, they were published in something called serial form. But the ghost stories were always published in a single sitting. The most famous of the Christmas stories, of course, is Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. But this one by Elizabeth Gaskell is also a Christmas ghost story. And it's not got a Christmas theme the way that A Christmas Carol has a Christmas theme, but it does have some themes that I think are important. One of them is the theme of guilt. This is a story about 2 sisters, really, who fight over a man, and one of them has a child with that man, a daughter. And then when the father finds out about the daughter who had gone off out of town under the auspices of being on vacation, came back with a daughter, he went berserk and sent her and both the mother and daughter, which was his daughter and granddaughter, if you will, out into the cold, where they died by being exposed to the elements. Part of that was the fact that the old lady now, Grace Furnival, actually ratted her sister out because she was so mad about her sister getting the man, if you will. So these are 2 sisters fighting over the same guy. The older sister wins. The younger sister rats her out whenever she comes home with a child, and bada bing, it has deadly consequences. And now the younger sister, who is now an old lady, actually has to deal with those consequences for the rest of her life. And so the story plays out that way. There's also the whole theme of what is done in the past cannot be undone in the future. So whatever you did in the past sticks with you. Those mistakes will stick with you forever. And so you've got that theme going on. And then, of course, we've also got the theme of, what's the other thing? Oh, regret. So, again, the sister that's still living and has become an old lady now has a lifetime of regret that's weighing down on her conscience. And so we've got that issue going on. Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market is written about goblins who are selling fruit. It's a story of 2 sisters. But you cannot help when you read this story, or most people cannot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to read the story. But most people, when they read Goblin Market, cannot help but to see parallels between Goblin Market and the Adam and Eve story in Genesis. And that is by design on Rossetti's part. That's what she wanted. She was a very pious lady. She wrote this poem as a warning to young girls not to give in to temptation. And of course, the tempters are out there. In Genesis, it's the snake, which Satan disguises himself as. And then, of course, in Goblin Market, it's the goblins. Only there's not just one goblin tempting her with delicious fruit. It is many goblins who are selling the fruit. Pay attention if you choose the innocence question, that she gives up a lock of her hair to pay for the fruit. That's something that she'll never get back. Once you clip off a lock of your hair, you can't put it back in there. Now think about young girls who are dating a boy. What might she give him that she can never have restored again? And of course, the obvious answer there is the virginity. Also notice the consequences for another young girl named Jeannie. And these are the consequences that Laura are going to suffer once she gives into temptation. And so think about the parallels between her dying a literal death and a social death of a girl, because back in the day that this story was written, this poem was written, if a young girl got caught fooling around before she got married, her reputation was ruined, and really so was her family's. And she would be unmarriable, which means that she'd either die an old lady at single, or she might have to resort to a lifetime of something like prostitution or something like that. So that is the warning to young girls to keep their virtue, to wait until marriage. There's the Garden of Eden parallels. And then, of course, the other theme I want you to look at, of course, is redemption. You cannot help, or most people cannot help but to see the parallels between Lizzie suffering for Laura's sin in order to redeem Laura, and the Jesus story in the New Testament, where Jesus suffers on the cross to redeem all of us for the sins that we commit. So you've got that redemption theme as well. So those are your question choices when it comes to the Rossetti poem. I think you're going to like both these readings. Again, I know it's a little early on Halloween, but it's because that's the way that the timeline of the class falls. So we'll deal with that when the time comes. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I will start grading those reader responses as soon as I can. By the time that you watch next week's video, hopefully they'll be done and I'll be completely caught up, and I don't plan on falling behind again.